Let me ask you something, and I want you to be honest with yourself right now. You know that feeling when you get paid? When that alert hits your phone and for about 45 seconds, you feel like you have money. And then, almost immediately, your brain starts doing this thing where it starts listing everything you deserve. A new pair of sneakers, that jacket you've been eyeing, maybe dinner somewhere that doesn't have a price board on the wall. And before you even realize what's happening, half of what just landed in your account is already mentally spent. Yeah, that's the trap. And I know you've been in it because honestly, almost everyone has. Here's the thing though, while you and I and millions of other people are out here spending money to feel rich, there's an entire culture on the other side of the world that has quietly cracked a code that most financial gurus will never teach you. Not because it's complicated, but because it's almost insultingly simple, and simple doesn't sell courses. I'm talking about Japan. And specifically, I'm talking about a concept so deeply baked into Japanese culture that they don't even think of it as a financial strategy. To them, it's just life. It's how you're supposed to be. It has a name, Seikatsu no Chi, which rough translates to the wisdom of everyday living. But that's just the umbrella. The real engine underneath it, the thing that makes Japanese people some of the most quietly wealthy people on the planet, comes from a few interlocking philosophies that we in the West have basically done the exact opposite of. And by the end of this video, I want you to walk away not just understanding what they do differently, but genuinely seeing your own financial habits through a completely different lens. Because this isn't about Japan being perfect. It's about recognizing a pattern that works and asking yourself why you've been doing the opposite your entire life. Let's start with a number, a very uncomfortable number. The personal savings rate in the United States right now hovers around 3 to 4%. 3 to 4 cents of every dollar earned is being saved. Japan's household savings rate, historically between 15 and 25%. And before you say, well, they earn more. No, Japan's average salary is actually lower than the US average. We're not talking about income. We're talking about behavior. We're talking about a completely different relationship with money. But here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part nobody talks about. Japan has over 3.5 million millionaires. That's the fourth highest number of millionaires of any country in the world. And if you've ever seen Japan, if you've walked the streets of Tokyo or Osaka, you would never guess it. Because these people don't look rich. They don't drive Lamborghinis to the convenience store. They don't wear logos that cost more than your rent. They don't flex. They don't post. They just accumulate, quietly, consistently, over decades. And that right there is the first lesson. There is a concept in Japan called Mienai Tomi, invisible wealth. And it's not just a mindset, it's a cultural value. In Japan, showing off wealth is considered vulgar. It's embarrassing. It signals that you lack taste, discipline, and self-awareness. The person walking around in a designer tracksuit isn't admired. They're pitied, because everyone around them knows. People who are truly wealthy don't need to announce it. Think about that for a second. We live in a culture where the entire point of getting money is to show you got money, where the flex is the goal, where your financial status is measured by what other people can see. And that one cultural difference, that one shift in values, is responsible for an enormous gap in actual financial outcomes. Because here's the math that destroys most people's finances. Ready? It's not income. It's not the market. It's not inflation. It's the appearance gap. The difference between what you earn and what you spend trying to look like you earn more. That gap is where wealth goes to die. And in Japan, that gap is almost non-existent because the culture has made it socially uncool to even try to close it. Look, I know what some of you are thinking. That's easy to say if you grew up in that culture. I grew up here. I was taught that success looks like something. And you're right. But that's exactly my point. You were taught that. It's not instinct. It's programming. And just like any programming, it can be rewritten. But first, you have to see it for what it is. Now let's go deeper. Because the don't show off thing is just the surface. The real architecture of Japanese wealth building runs much deeper than that. There's a practice, a ritual, almost, that millions of Japanese people follow called Kakeibo. And if you've never heard of this, hold on. Because this is going to feel like the most low-tech, unsexy financial tool you've ever encountered. And it's going to annoy you that it works so well. Kakeibo is a handwritten household budget journal, not an app, not a spreadsheet. A physical notebook where at the beginning of each month, you sit down and answer 4 questions. How much money do I have? How much do I want to save? How much am I spending? And this one matters. How can I improve? That's it. No algorithm, no subscription fee. Just you, a pen, and a notebook, having an honest conversation with yourself about your money every single month. Now you might be thinking, okay, that sounds like regular budgeting. What's the big deal? And here's where I need you to slow down and actually think about this. Because the genius isn't in the tool, it's in the act. Research from Princeton and UCLA both show something that should shake you a little. When you write something by hand, you engage a completely different part of your brain than when you type it. You process it more deeply, you remember it more vividly, you feel it more. Most people who use budgeting apps look at their spending and see numbers. Kakeibo practitioners look at their spending and feel shame. And I don't mean that in a cruel way. I mean it in the most productive way possible. That quiet discomfort of writing down that you spent $45,000 on food delivery this month because you were tired. That discomfort is the feedback loop. That's the mechanism. That's what changes behavior over time. Studies done on Kakeibo practitioners show that people who follow this method save between 30 and 40% more money per month than those who don't track at all. Not 5% more, not 10% more, 30 to 40% more. And they do it not by depriving themselves, but simply by knowing, by facing the numbers, by making the invisible visible. But here's the uncomfortable truth underneath all of this. Most of us don't track our spending because we know we won't like what we see. It's like not stepping on a scale when you know you've been eating badly. The avoidance is the problem. The not looking is the problem. And Kakeibo forces you to look every single month. Now let me introduce you to another concept. And this one is going to hit different depending on where you are in your financial journey. In Japan, there's a philosophy called ikigai, which most people have heard of in the context of purpose and meaning. But what most people miss is how deeply ikigai connects to financial behavior. The idea is this: you should be doing work that sits at the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And in Japan, finding that intersection isn't just a passion project, it's a financial strategy. Because when you are doing work that genuinely aligns with your ikigai, something interesting happens. You stop chasing the salary and start building something. You stop spending money to escape your work. Because why would you escape something you actually love? Think about how much money you spend on weekends, on entertainment, on shopping, on experiences. Not because you really want those things, but because you need a break from a job you hate. Japanese workers, on average, spend significantly less on leisure escapism than their Western counterparts. And part of the reason is that many of them, not all, the system is far from perfect, but many of them have a much more integrated relationship between their work and their identity. Their work isn't a cage they need to escape. It's part of their self-expression. Now here's the connection nobody makes. When you hate your job, you spend more money. Full stop. It's called emotional spending, and it is quietly destroying more financial futures than any stock market crash ever has. The science backs this up. Research published in the Journal of Consumer Psychology found that people who report low job satisfactions spend significantly more on impulsive and luxury purchases than those who report high job satisfaction. Because spending becomes a compensation mechanism, a way to say, my time might belong to someone I don't care about, but at least I get to have this. This is why the Japanese model of career isn't just an HR philosophy. It's a wealth preservation strategy. Because a person doing work they care about doesn't need the shopping trip to feel human again. All right, let's talk about something that is going to make some of you genuinely uncomfortable. In Japan, there's a concept called mottainai. And it's one of those Japanese words that doesn't have a perfect English equivalent, which is very telling. Mottainai roughly means, what a waste. But it's not just an expression, it's a value system. It's a lens through which every purchase decision is filtered. Before you throw something away, before you buy something new, the mottainai principle asks you, have you fully extracted the value from what you already have? Japanese people repair things. They maintain things. They buy fewer things and take better care of them. And this isn't poverty. It's wisdom. There is a famous Japanese art form called kintsugi, where broken pottery is repaired using gold lacquer. The cracks become part of the beauty. The object's history makes it more valuable, not less. That philosophy extends directly into how Japanese people treat their possessions, their tools, their clothes. Now contrast that with the average consumer in most Western economies, where the replacement cycle for electronics, clothing, furniture, and even cars has been deliberately engineered to be as short as possible. Companies don't want you to repair things. They want the relationship between you and your product to be a constant, never-ending loop of buying new. And we have, without even realizing it, adopted a worldview that says something old and worn is something to be ashamed of, that a phone with a cracked screen says something about you as a person. The mottainai principle says the opposite. It says the cracked phone you've had for 4 years says you're not a fool. It says you understand that the phone you have still works. It says you understand the difference between what you need and what a marketing budget has convinced you to want. Here's a real number for you. The average American household throws away $500 worth of food every single month. Every month. That's $6,000 a year, going in the trash, while people tell themselves they can't afford to invest. Mottainai, what a waste. And this connects to something deeper. In Japan, particularly in the older generation, there is an almost spiritual approach to shopping. You don't buy something because it's on sale. You buy something because you need it. You've researched it, and you've decided it is worth trading your life energy for. Because that's what money really is. It's the stored representation of your time, of hours you will never get back. And every foolish purchase is not just a financial mistake. It's a surrender of the irreplaceable. Now, let's build to the piece that ties all of this together. Because everything I've told you so far is the philosophy. But Japanese wealth building also has a very specific, very practical financial mechanism underneath it. And this is where I want you to lean in. In Japan, there's a budgeting approach that maps almost perfectly to what modern financial planners call pay yourself first. But the Japanese framing of it goes back decades before that phrase became a self-help cliche. The principle is simple. The moment your income arrives, a fixed portion is immediately allocated to savings and investment, before the rent, before the groceries, before everything. That amount moves. It's gone from your spendable pool before your brain has a chance to find a reason to spend it. And then, and this is crucial, you live on what's left, not the other way around. In most modern households, people spend first and save what's left, which is almost always nothing, or close to nothing, because spending will always expand to fill available funds. That is just human nature. We are wired by millions of years of evolution to consume available resources. Because for most of human history, hoarding food while you had access to it was a survival advantage. The problem is that wiring is completely incompatible with modern wealth building. The Japanese version of this, save first, live on the rest, is so mechanically simple that it feels like it can't possibly be the answer. But the data is clear. When saving is automated, when it happens before spending can get to it, people save dramatically more, and not just a little more. We're talking about the difference between someone who retires with dignity and someone who's working into their 70s, not because they love their job, but because they can't afford to stop. Let me give you the compound interest piece now, because I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't. If you start at 25 and invest the equivalent of just $500 per month into an index fund averaging a 10% annual return, by the time you're 55-30 years, you're looking at something in the region of $1.13 million from $500 a month. The money that most people spend on food delivery and subscriptions they forgot about. The Japanese understand this math instinctively because their culture doesn't mock delayed gratification. It honors it. In fact, there's a saying in Japanese financial philosophy, the present you and the future you are in a relationship. Most people are terrible to their future self. Think about that. Every time you choose the purchase over the investment, you are making your future self's life harder. You are being genuinely unkind to the person you will become. And when you frame it that way, not as sacrifice, not as deprivation, but as a relationship that you are either nurturing or neglecting, it changes the emotional weight of the decision. Now, I want to address something, because I know some of you watching this are already composing the objection in your head. This sounds great for people who have enough money to save. I'm barely surviving as it is. And look, I hear that. I do. The structural economic pressures are real. Cost of living is real. Income inequality is real. I'm not dismissing any of that. But here's what I will push back on. And I say this with genuine care, not judgment. Most people who say they have nothing to save have never actually tracked their spending with radical honesty. Most people who say they can't invest have never spent 30 days writing down every single dollar that leaves their hands. And almost always, almost without exception, when someone does that for the first time, they find money they didn't know they were losing. Not a fortune, but something. And something invested consistently, over time, compounded, is everything. Mottainai. The waste is already there. The question is whether you're willing to look at it. Japan also has a concept worth mentioning here called kaizen, continuous improvement, small, daily, incremental progress. It's a philosophy that was originally applied to manufacturing and business, but the Japanese apply it to every area of life, including personal finance. You don't have to overhaul your entire relationship with money in one dramatic day. You make it 1% better today, tomorrow 1% better again. And you trust the math of consistency. The reason most people fail at financial improvement isn't lack of information. It's not that they don't know they should save more or spend less. They know. Everyone knows. The reason they fail is because they try to go from zero to perfect overnight, and when they slip, which everyone does, they decide the whole system is broken and go back to how things were. Kaizen says there is no perfect, there is only better than yesterday. And better than yesterday every day for 20 years is how ordinary people end up with extraordinary outcomes. So here's where I want to land this plane. You don't need to move to Japan. You don't need to adopt a completely different cultural identity. What you need to do is take the underlying architecture of what works, the invisible wealth mindset, the Kakeibo accountability practice, the mottainai filter on every purchase, the ikigai-aligned approach to your work, the save-first mechanism, and the Kaizen mentality of small daily improvement, and begin, starting today, not Monday, not next month, today, to apply them to your actual life. Pick up a notebook. Write down what you earned this month. Write down what you spent. Write down what you want to save. And then sit with the gap. Let it make you uncomfortable. Let that discomfort be the beginning of something different. Stop buying things to signal a life you don't actually have. The people who matter don't care what shoes you're wearing. And the people who do care about your shoes, they are not the people you should be trying to impress. Start treating your future self like someone worth fighting for. Because the truth is, no one is coming to save you. No government windfall, no lottery, no viral moment is going to replace the slow, patient, unglamorous work of deciding every single month to be financially responsible. That's the unsexy reality. But it's also the only reality that leads somewhere worth going. The Japanese have a word, gaman, which means enduring with patience and dignity. It's the capacity to persist through difficulty without complaint. Not because difficulty is pleasant, but because the destination justifies the discomfort of the journey. You are capable of more than your current financial habits suggest. The proof is that you're still watching this. You came here because something in you already knows that what you've been doing isn't working. That something is the beginning. That something, nurtured with the right philosophy and the right tools, becomes the life on the other side of all the noise. Stop looking rich. Start building it. Because the people who are truly wealthy, you'll never know it by looking at them. And one day, if you do this right, neither will anyone else know it about you.